So I never quite know what's going to happen at these Medicans. CBD Luke was going to come and apologises. He's had a family tragedy anyway. He couldn't be here. There's a chance he'll be here tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a similar day. Steve Bolt won't be here, the legal guy. Other people will be here. It might be more about making medicine, but everyone's welcome. Some of you I know are staying, and there'll be a different crowd come. And it'll be more about making medicine probably, and juicing and stuff like that tomorrow. But both the doctors are here again. But the surprise that I didn't know was going to be here is Ajia Mae Moon. I just got to tell you a little bit about her. So I met her in the back veranda of the Hemp Embassy maybe 5 years ago. And, you know, she had a little mob with her. And she's from Vancouver in Canada. But she's got a connection with Australia and has been coming here, I think, since she was young. Anyway, she had serious operations when she was around 10 years old and got totally addicted to opiates. And half the people we see in Nimbin who are looking for medical cannabis are using opiates and they don't like them. They don't like the effect, they don't like what it's doing to them. And cannabis can be so much better and do the same pain-relieving job without wiping you out. So Ajia weaned herself off opiates with medical cannabis and went on to run an online dispensary in Vancouver. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about where it's at in Canada, which reminds me of what's happening in Australia. We're both Commonwealth countries. We're both, honestly, they are trying to control it with really big business or government business. So, you know, getting a license is quite difficult, complicated. You're going to have to be big. And then they'll slowly take out everyone else. That looks like being the plan. And it's similar in Canada. But in Canada, they've had a lot more going on. But, you know, they're bringing in new rules, and when you don't fit into the new rules and the other people are ready, like casinos making a farm, a 20-acre cannabis farm, you know, maybe that's producing medicine in a couple of years, then they come and take away Nimbin. I don't know how it's going to play out. But I'm really thrilled Ajia's here. She's a legend in Canada and outspoken, and she's made me capable to say, yeah, someone bought me a ticket to Canada to judge in a cannabis cup. Everyone looks at you, you for real? Yeah, I met this woman. She gave me a ticket to go over there and judge a cannabis cup. Anyway, I'll be able to tell that story for life because she did it to me.
Thank you, I'm going to steal this chair.
I'll bring it over.
Yeah.
All right. In that you're on the spot.
Yeah, that's totally fine. So as Michael was telling you, my name is Ajia Mae Moon, and I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, which is in Canada. I'm the owner of the 12 High Chicks magazine, which has had one successful print run, and we're working on our volume 2 right now, which is 2 pieces. Michael mentioned that I've gone through several operations. When I was born, my feet were pointing backwards. I was so badly twisted that I was unable to walk without assistance. And finally, after a 12-year process, they were able to redesign my legs essentially, where they removed all the flesh from my kneecap up to my hip, cut the bone in half, let it untwist, and they put a plate, 6 screws in both my legs and left me paralyzed for a year. And then they put me through 2.5 years worth of rehabilitation. I currently can't feel my body from my hips, just to below my kneecap, which makes it kind of hard to walk. And they left me with one option for pain medicine, which was opiates, which was really unfortunate for someone who's so young. I didn't actually wean myself off of it. It was really wild. One day, I was walking down this main street where I'm from, and there was a lava lamp. And I actually said just minutes before, Tommy, give me a sign, what should I do? And there's a lava lamp, and I went, okay, I'm going straight to my friend Richard's house. And I went there, and I literally dropped all my opiates down the toilet, I flushed them down, and I just kind of suffered for about a month, and I haven't looked back. And that was, 1998. So over my lifespan, I've been able to somehow keep work that doesn't have me tied down 9 to 5. I'm not able to necessarily stand very often or sit down for long periods of time, which makes normal jobs kind of impossible, which helped me kind of become an entrepreneur, leading to owning the magazine that I do now. We've managed to get our magazine I think in 13 different countries so far is where we've got it distributed and where people can buy it, which I'm very proud. I kind of started off in the yearbook when I was in high school, and here I am kind of doing the same idea where I take a year of the best of and put it together. In the last little while, we've been watching a lot of what I call the dark side of cannabis. And for the first time in Canadian history, we are putting people in jail for distributing cannabis, even just possessing it or using it. We had our biggest bust ever, I think for any kind of crime, where 300 people were arrested and charged in Ontario for a project called Project Claudia. And the police department there basically ganged up on all the dispensaries and took them out in one big swipe. People have been able to rebuild since then, but then they took that project and they called it Project Gator, where they took out a whole bunch of other dispensaries, specifically the cannabis culture dispensaries. And the government's taking a new approach to how they're going to run dispensaries in its future, and it does not involve any of the people now that have built the cannabis community that you see before you. Which is really sad, because there are people that have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years, their whole lives, and they're being told that they can't have the proper licensing. Some of the requirements to run a dispensary in this new world is not having a criminal record related to marijuana. That seems really odd. That takes out probably about 95% of us that would want to be in the marijuana industry, and somehow I feel like I need to knock on wood. Oh my gosh, this floor is wood. All right, I have not gotten arrested or charged for anything to do with marijuana. Whew. But still, there's a huge process that you need to go through in order to get to that medical marijuana license. When I first started out with my dispensary, so this would have been when I launched the magazine, I had 3 Happy Cats, which is a THC dispensary. It was a pretty fun little ride, but we tried to get our licensing with the municipality of Vancouver. And their requirements were $30,000 up front for a non-profit compassion society. That's pretty steep for a company that doesn't make any money. And then they also required so many other stipulations that we basically couldn't go any further. So we closed our dispensary on December 23rd of 2015. Now the doors are opening again where I can actually open a dispensary, so I'm looking in the area of Squamish, but yet again, lots of hoops you have to jump through, and then we're waiting for the province to give us the rules on what we're allowed to do for the dispensaries. Technically speaking, we've been told that we're going to get legalization this year in Canada, but I'm not sure legalization is quite the right term, because technically the UN, which we are a member of, and I believe Australia, you guys are a member of the UN, absolutely, can't have cannabis legally, which is kind of a lot of, that's the reason why nobody's got it legal, because the UN keeps stepping in and saying you can't do that. So you find in America there's a lot of states that have it legal, because that's not the country that's disobeying, those are the individual states. You have the same thing in Canada where it's regulated by the provinces versus the actual country itself. You find that also in Amsterdam. It's not actually legal, it's decriminalized, which is kind of sad that we're waiting on one organization to change their mind. There was actually a huge, I guess, meeting, I want to call it. It was a something summit. I wish I could remember. My friend Dennis Borbert of POW 420, he was there, and they did discussions on how they were going to look at legalization of many different drugs, not just cannabis. And so far, it was just talk, and nothing actually happened. Currently, they're talking about recreational, like I said, back at home, but it really looks like it's going to be a by-province thing. And some provinces are allowing craft cannabis users or distributors to be a part of the program, and then some provinces are not at all. They're just allowing the liquor store type motto, or the actual liquor stores themselves, to sell the cannabis, which is kind of not what we're really looking for. We want to find our medical cannabis in medical stores, as far as I'm concerned. And then even with the recreational, I've been to the United States, and they look, you know, they're reputable. Everything is put away in such a fashion that you know, you can pick your medicine as well as your recreational from the same store. And that's not quite how they're planning to do it. It's all kind of, I hate to say the word dirty, but that's kind of the way it's looking for Canada, how dispensaries will be run if they're run by the province as opposed to the local people. And some of the regulations are up to $2 million. I don't have $2 million. Normal people don't have $2 million to put down to be able to run any kind of business up front, they normally have, you know, some sort of plan, but those are normally big corporations, so they're kicking out little people yet again, right? So you got to be big corporate money, you have to have no criminal record, and then none of your employees can have a criminal record to do with cannabis as well, which kind of cuts out so many other ties. And then the idea of growing, same thing, big licensing fees, and not necessarily getting the license to grow or to be able to do that craft cannabis idea that you have. We have something called the licensed producers in Canada, and they're the legal distributors of medical cannabis currently, and they do it by mail order, which is kind of fun. But not all of them got their licenses, and they were required to put up millions and millions of dollars, open up warehouses, put in, you know, tens of millions of dollars worth of upgrades to not necessarily get their license. It's a very tough field to get into right now, and it's kind of up in the air. We just had something called the Round Table, where people were invited to discuss what their ideas of legalization were from all over the country. My friend Tamira was able to come down. It was in Vancouver. I'm not really sure what the results of that are yet, but we're supposed to find out sometime this year. And they haven't really specified a date. We were all pretty sure it was July 1st, and then the government's turned around and said, no, it's not July 1st. It'll be sometime this year, but not necessarily in July. And with everything being all over the place, it's kind of an all-out war. We have some territories where they're busting people, and they're busting them very hard. And then we have other communities where they just don't care. And we're waiting kind of, you know, for the actual law to be laid down so that we can figure out what we're going to be doing in Canada. We've been also noticing that there's been deals happening between Canadian corporations and Australian corporations. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it depends on how they decide to distribute their cannabis. And they're talking about doing international as well. But that's to say the UN agrees to allowing international sales through the mail. And I just poured water all over my phone. Thank goodness it's in a waterproof case. So Australia is kind of looking like you've started a medical program, but you've only got a few people that are using medical cannabis. Is that correct? Yeah. That's how America is as well. They have 8 or 9 people. I think it's 8 people left on the medical cannabis program. I mean, that's very little considering there's 15 million people sitting in the main parts of America where they could be accessing cannabis, and it's not that. Elvie is one of the survivors. I've been able to talk to her. And it's not even the very best cannabis either. The states are able to provide better medicine than what the country can. And that's kind of the same way as in Canada as well. So our state doesn't know how to grow cannabis. And that's because they didn't do it for a long time. It's kind of hard to say you can come in and make the best of the best when you bring in someone who's been a tomato farmer for the last 30 years. And it's been really sad to watch a lot of people that are absolutely talented to get pushed out of what they do and helping people because the government's coming in with their big corporations and pushing them out. We've been told we have until the end of February, and they're going to come and they're going to start really enforcing the new laws that come in. And they're not joking around. Canada's a really relaxed country. Normally a mandatory minimum is 6 months in prison. We're here, it can be up to 25 years. We've now turned those 6-month minimums into 12, 14 years. We're really going hard, and they're really going hard with youth getting cannabis, which can be really difficult when youth are supplying youth with cannabis. I mean, the first time I ever smoked cannabis, I had another high school student give me a joint. So does that mean like half of our kids now are going to be sitting in juvenile detention centers until they become adults and do the beginning of their adulthood there? I'm not really sure where we're going with this fight. We're supposed to be legalizing it, not making it more difficult. And they're talking about potentially pardoning those that have cannabis charges, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can cross the border or do anything, which is incredibly unfair, especially when we've got cannabis available at our pharmacists right now. On a federal level, I can go into my pharmacy and get something called Nabilone or Sativex, which I have a prescription for. And yet, that same thing can put the person beside me without that prescription in jail. That's just, yeah, it's bullshit, absolutely. That's good words. And unfortunately, we're just kind of sitting here waiting until they make some sort of difference. We're watching America kind of make more of a difference than we ever have in a much shorter period of time, which is kind of frustrating because Americans have always kind of come to Canada to smoke weed and relax and do their thing. And now their weed is cheaper than ours, which is amazing. I love going on trips down in the U.S. and I get a little worried once in a while though because they Google my name, one day I'm sure they will, and they're going to say, oh, you like smoking weed, don't you? And then that'll be the end of it. And hopefully the fact that I'm a medical user back at home, they have it available in their state would be enough to let me through, but I'm not sure. I've had 3 riders kicked out of the United States permanently. They told my rider Kitten Puff, who's Penny Bell, that she needs to go to rehabilitation in order for her to come over the border. And it's up to the discretion of the border agent. They can also say your rehab was not enough and send her back if they like. They're the only country in the world where they can just refuse you because they feel like it. They could not like your clothing or the way you've done your hair or whatever it may be. Most places, like Australia, is really cool. I mean, they've never Googled me, I'm sure, but as long as you don't have a criminal record, they let you through. But then also, how many people can't come in because they do have a criminal record? And a lot of those are cannabis charges that are preventing them from traveling, which is very interesting. And now Canada's kind of followed suit that we have the ETA as well, so it's kind of a two-way street now, being able to leave the country. It's been very cool though, traveling. That's actually what my book is mostly about, is traveling, if any of you guys have managed to see it. I got it kind of wet, but that's all right. I have Adventures from Nimbin in America. It's one of my favorite here. But I've learned so much about cannabis and how it's made and how people are using it and how it makes their lives different and how it enhances their lives. I've met people that had no patience, you know, be able to smoke a little bit of weed and be able to get through whatever it is that was absolutely hard to overtake. And it's one of the only drugs that's very universal and has very little side effects. And yet we're still here prosecuting it all over the world, which is just very strange. And like I said, doing able to travel with this magazine, I've met lots of like-minded people, people that are changing the world piece by piece. And really what it comes down to is we need everyone to come out and have their word heard. I joined politics once because a friend asked me to come and help him pass some policies with cannabis. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll join. Sure, no problem. $10, here you go. And sure enough, we managed to convince members of parliament to allow people to have personal consumption just by showing up, just by putting your hand up. And I know that sounds really crazy, but with having a system with preferences, you guys have a really hard go at getting what you want politically. I don't know what it takes for you guys to reach out and work together, but the more you do that, the more you're going to see change. And I know people have been saying that since the 60s, but we really do need to start working more together. And, you know, once we start passing down that message more firmly that working together is the solution, you're going to find that people don't care if people are using cannabis. They're going to stop putting laws in that prevent people from being free. It really doesn't matter what other people are doing. It's more, as long as they're having fun, they're happy, they're healthy, and as long as it's not hurting anybody. That's what it really comes down to with cannabis. It helps a lot of people get out of bad patterns where they are harming themselves. For instance, with opiates. I've been there, and you know, a lot of doctors just don't know any better. Up until the last 3 years, my doctor had no idea about medical cannabis. They had never heard of any kind of place where they could learn about it. There were no textbooks, nothing available through the government, that was for sure. And then it started coming out in full throttle. More and more countries were getting curious. And now our doctors, specifically my doctor as well, are fully aware of what medical cannabis can do for people and are now prescribing it more and more, even to people that don't necessarily need a high dose. Here, try a half gram a day just to see if it helps with your stress levels. People that are trying different ointments and different tinctures and other things that are maybe not necessarily smokable to help them relax or help them, you know, get to the state where they need to be. I have also a lot of chronic pain with my knees. CBD really helps with the inflammation and starting to feel better, where no other drug does that without doing some serious side effects to my body. And a lot of other people are feeling the same way. And once there's enough doctors, I guess, also talking to each other, that's when I think we'll start seeing politics also going in the right direction. The first doctor I seen talk about medical cannabis would have been Dr. Waddock, actually. We flew all the way out from Vancouver to see him at the 30th anniversary Skeptics Convention. And that was pretty cool to see a doctor that wasn't from Canada talk about cannabis. And then we went to Las Vegas, where we got to see some American doctors as well speak about medical cannabis. We had totally different ideas. It was actually really cool to see Dr. Waddock, because they were talking about life after Prohibition, and we were kind of laughing. We were like, well, it's kind of downtown Vancouver. You should come hang out sometime. But yeah, you guys are a little bit further behind, but not that much further. A lot of the doctors in America are way ahead of us because they've been able to do research. They've had a lot of private investors that are able to give them, 20, 30, $40 million to go research cannabis, which is absolutely brilliant. We just need to wait for all that research to become available. And if we can just get everyone to start getting it legalized completely, that's, I guess, what we're waiting for, really. When my friend Sista and I decided we were going to try doing the cannabis industry again by opening up a dispensary, we did think really hard about how we were going to do it and get through all the red tape. And that's how we kind of ended up in Squamish, because it's the least expensive. You can actually run a nonprofit and help people without it turning into an actual requirement of overturning too much profit. In downtown Vancouver, a lot of the nonprofits, they're paying $20,000 for an overhead. That means you're charging your clients and your patients a lot of money so that you can just sit there to help them. So moving to communities where it's $1,000 for your overhead, and you can find people that are like-minded, or it doesn't have to be such an expense. Oh man, Vancouver's so expensive. It's like $15 a gram, which I'm sure you guys are laughing because you guys are paying much more for cannabis of that kind of quality. But for us, minimum wage is only $15 for us. I'm not sure what it is for you guys. Michael, what's minimum wage? Do you know?
No, I'm actually getting it from the center.
20 bucks? Yeah, that's actually livable, I would think. Vancouver's the most expensive city in North America, and the average rent is $5,000 a month. It's pretty steep. And I live 45 minutes away from downtown, and it's still about that price. So most people are working really hard, and they're working way too much. And that's why a lot of people are also turning to cannabis for stress, because in the cities, they're working 2 jobs, sometimes 3. That's also not good. And we watched so many people come into our dispensary when we were running the first one, and it was really great to see people feel better, after just trying a little bit of something that wasn't necessarily chemicals. It's really amazing how many chemicals are pushing through the pharmaceutical companies right now. It's a little bit different for us in Canada because the pharmaceutical companies, whether they're giving us pharmaceutical-grade marijuana, and when I say that, I mean like the Sativex and Navalonia, we don't have the flower available to us on a medical level through our medical plan. But all of those things are being pushed equally. So you can have kind of access to whatever you want now, and we didn't have that when we were growing up. That's been in the last 5 years where you can have access to pharmaceutical-grade cannabis. So our companies, they don't really care, I think, so much about which one you're buying, because you're buying something from them. Where in America, it's very money-run. The government's not necessarily giving them a universal health care. Like in Canada, you could smoke 2 packs a day. They'll put you down on the bed, probably take you out for a couple smokes till they find you some new lungs. It's really ridiculous that you can totally abuse yourself and they will keep helping you. But at the same token, you have kind of this fearlessness being Canadian, because you could jump off a bridge and know someone's coming to help you, which is amazing. I don't know if you guys necessarily have that freedom here. I know in America that's not the way. A lot of my friends from there have very tame childhoods. They don't really remember jumping out into lakes and doing wild adventures because their parents were like, no, we don't have the money, don't jump, don't. Which is really unfortunate. There's something called Obamacare that Trump does not necessarily like, that he's trying to fix and kind of screw about 1.6 million people out of their medical, which is really, really terrible. But that's giving some people that really didn't have anything the ability to get medical, which is very, very impressive. And hopefully they can get on federal level medical marijuana so that those people can also get access to cannabis, but they're not quite there yet. And there are people that are literally border jumping in America, that are living in states where it's not legal, and they have children that have epilepsy or they have MS and they need some sort of relief, and they're literally like packing up into a car and they're driving 3 states away so that they can be free. And that's really sad. It would be really nice if the federal government could do more than just 8 people. And it used to be bigger. I can't remember how many it was. I want to say it was 12. That's really not a lot of federal patients. And unfortunately, over the years, some of them have gotten to old age and they've died. So that's how we've dwindled down to 8 or 9, which is pretty wild. Canada, I believe we have over 25,000 federal patients, which is a much bigger number. And it's not really as hard as it used to be. I think that number might even be higher. And when it first started out, it was 56 people. So that's a huge difference. And it just needs to be something that your doctor says, yeah, absolutely, you could use that to help you. They sign off your ACMPR, which is the medical access program we have now. We've gone through a few different ones. We had the MMAR, and we had the, the MMAR, and the I can never remember. But the middle one was the worst, because they took away all of our rights to grow. And then the Canadian people came up with $500,000 to fight them, and they got their ability to grow again with the new one, which is the ACMPR. But it's pretty lax there to get your medical marijuana license with the federal government, where it's not necessarily that way in the rest of the world. And it's going to take some time for people to catch up, I think. When we're talking on a provincial level, it's pretty much caught up in Canada. I think there's a couple provinces where it's a little bit tighter, but those are the ones that are going to be bringing in the liquor stores to be running the cannabis community, which is, like I said, that's really painful to see that. They're going to literally have the cannabis and the liquor all in the same store. I guess that's better than it being like, I guess, on the street corner with somebody, but at the same token, I know all the guys in the street corner. They're pretty cool. Well, it's kind of interesting to see an arrow die, and not know what's coming. It's been pretty wild. A lot of people have jumped ship or changed jobs or become members of communities they wouldn't have if things hadn't gone the way it has. It's been pretty wild, and watching the raids has also been really wild, watching really good families get taken out because they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we had speakers at the Mobcat, which we've mentioned before, that had come all the way from the other side of Canada to come and talk, which I realized Michael coming all the way from Australia is a lot further. But it was still, I believe, a 9.5-hour flight from the other end of Canada, and yours was 14.5. So that's a long flight from the other side of Canada. It's a really big land. And same thing, they came in and they just took her out because she was in the wrong city at the wrong time. And sometimes the RCMP, which is our federal police, they're okay with it, and then sometimes they're not. And it's just really wild that it can also depend on the officer. Same with America. If there's something they just don't like, they'll just come in and take it out. And we've watched it so many times. And I've been very fortunate to never be at a raid. I have shown up to work, watched the raid, turned back around, and left. But luckily never in the building. I think I should knock on wood one more time just for that one, because that's always crazy, watching your friends get arrested, especially when it's on a film inside the store that you work at and you're just watching it on the security camera from the phone. And you're like, well, good luck to you guys in a couple hours, I suppose. We've had some very wild adventures where we've had lawyers have to show up in the middle of the night to come and rescue us. And just, yeah, running a dispensary has certainly been fun. And I'm very pessimistic yet optimistic for what's going to happen in Canada. Because I think the first round of legalization is going to be terrible. They're going to take out tons of people, even more than they've done now. They've told us. It's not like it's a threat. We're doing this after this time. Pack up and go. And some of them are going to stay, and some are going to pack up and go, and some of them are going to try and work with the new regulations. And the new regulations don't seem so bad in my particular area. But in some areas, it's just unattainable for people that have been doing this their whole lives. And here you guys are just kind of starting your dispensary movement to help each other on a level that's not, I guess, incoherent with what the government's doing. They've kind of got their program, and then there's some dispensaries that are helping people in compassionate clubs that I've seen in Melbourne and in Sydney and in Brisbane and in some of the local areas as well. I will say what's happening in Melbourne is pretty wild and very, very underground. It reminds me of 1995, downtown Vancouver, when I was underage and checking out all the cannabis clubs when I shouldn't have. Mind you, I could never get into the back door, but we'd always go and check it out, right? We'd be like, oh, go. But finally we got old enough and we were able to go inside. But yeah, I don't know. You guys are also kind of watching the end of an era as well, because now we're getting medical cannabis becoming this new era where it's not so scary anymore. People are talking about it. It's kind of cool to watch the world kind of wake up, but not be, it's kind of cool, it's kind of frightening too, because some people aren't sure what they're going to do as they wake up. I don't know if anyone has watched what the president of the Philippines has done, but he went out and did some headhunting on all the drug dealers recently, which is pretty wild. Something along the lines of eating the heart of his enemies. It was pretty wild. Most leaders are pretty tame, I would suspect. I think we have one more wild one, and that's Kim of North Korea, but he's being provoked, I suppose. A lot of leaders are leading us astray, and some are leading us into the future, which is also quite interesting. In the cannabis community, we're watching a lot of leaders take us in all sorts of new places. And we've got people that are fighting over whether we should be joining with the government or if we should be doing our independent thing or what the right thing to do is. And luckily for me, and kind of unlucky at the same time, is I had to go off social media for a year and a half. I had 3 court cases back to back. And unfortunately, 2 of the 3 are court ordered not to be discussed. So I was off social media for almost 2 years. And I haven't said anything about where anyone should be anywhere because I haven't been there to say anything. So it's actually been to my advantage because now everyone's like, oh, what's your thoughts on this? I'm like, I don't think I have any. And I've managed to keep all of my friends because I haven't gotten into the big debate of what the right thing to do is. And I think in the long run, the right thing to do is let everybody grow it. Everybody be able to smoke it, use it however they need to. It shouldn't matter if you get it from the government or your best friend or have it in your backyard. You should just have access to it. It's a plant. It's not like we're talking about some sort of chemical warfare that takes people out. It makes people sleepy and hungry. That's like, oh my gosh, you woke up covered in Doritos. This is the worst thing ever. You know, so soon enough the world's going to wake up. And I'm not really sure exactly when it'll be fully awake, but it's coming, and it's exciting that it's coming here. Because I've been coming here since I was 12 years old, and I did my first series of actually walking after all my therapy here. And this is where I got my legs. I started off in Brisbane, and I kind of worked my way up the coast and came down. I got to see Niman for the first time when I was 12, but I just got to drive through it. And I've always been kind of coming back. And the first time I actually ever met you, Michael, would have been 2008. And I tried to bug you to take my picture at the bus, and you were like, nah. And then you were off. And that was the very first time I ever met you. And then I got to actually talk to you the year after. And I think the first time I was ever really memorable was when I was like hunted you down. We were waiting there for you in the back. It wasn't just there in the back. We were waiting. We were like, we are going to make Michael remember. And we did. That was very good. It's been a really great friendship, Michael. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I mean, I've been all over the world. I've seen so many different forms of legalization and different types of medicine and medicine makers. I don't necessarily know everything, but I've certainly seen a lot.
What's the single most important thing that you've seen that makes a difference in getting it legalised?
People working together and showing up for the political meetings, because that's huge. Like the round tables, people were given an invitation. It was the participation that got the Canadian word out. I mean, that's a little bit different here. I remember before we were talking about politics, and your preference system is just so far out for me, buddy. Like, we just don't do preferences. You vote and that's it. But yeah, working together, figuring out what it takes to make certain things decriminalized, legalized, referendums. I know these are big words. Once upon a time, these were words that I was like, yeah, right. They're actually not that hard. People in suits are actually people underneath those suits. I found that out in 2011. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was always afraid of people in Parliament. I always thought they had some sort of hidden agenda. But I mean, in the long run, they're people. If you talk to them, there are parts of your laws. If you work together, you can change them. You guys are the people of your own country, and I've seen people in my country do it. I didn't believe it until I saw it myself. I really, really didn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. And then once I started getting involved and calling my friends, come, help me, make it so that fresh water can be brought up to the northern territories of our country where people need water. And they did. They showed up, they got on the bus, and they came and they signed the referendum paperwork so that they could get their fresh water, because the water just shuts off. That's it. They freeze. It's like negative 50 degrees outside. There's no one coming unless somebody sends somebody. And so now there's somebody being sent. And that's the same thing with cannabis. If enough of you go say, hey, we need this, and you do the right steps, you get the right documents, which, I mean, if I had my really young teenager help me a lot with some stuff, I'd ask her to find me the documents online, and I had, some of my friends help me locate it, because I'm not necessarily the most, considering I have an online magazine, you'd think I'd be really technologically inclined, not so much. So I would ask other people to help me put it together, and that's what it was. The community got together, we got the documents together, we went to the right offices, we, shook hands with people that you would never meet on the streets or would never go and have dinner with. But eventually your word gets heard, and they have to do something, because if you outnumber them, what are they going to do? You have more votes than they do. And that's literally what happened in 2011 when we allowed people to have a small amount of cannabis on them. So there was no more harm to people that were just personal users. I'm not really sure what your state you're from or what exactly you're looking for, but I'm sure if you grab my email, we could find it. I could find someone that could find the right documents. Absolutely.
What I'm looking for, we've got a whole group of people all on the right team. What can we all do? Go out and get other people to join us. Is it that simple?
It is that simple, but then you've got to take the next step and take those people into the political ring, or take them into a referendum ring, where the province or the state, for you guys, because you have states, would get together and they would sign off for a referendum to decriminalize marijuana or legalize marijuana or whatever it is you're looking for. And with enough signatures, depending on how it goes in that state, they'll have to do it. And that's what happened. I mean, just a few years ago, we had a tax that they implemented on us. We said, no way. And just a couple of young kids, door to door, hey, do you want to get rid of this tax? Yeah. And eventually they had enough signatures where that was it. The government didn't matter what they said. The people spoke. And that was the end of it. They got rid of the tax. But like I said, we just have to get enough people together and the right documents and you're good to go. Absolutely.
She doesn't know, we have no Bill of Rights. In Australia, we have no Bill of Rights, which is how it's all changed in the American states, and how you guys got it changed in Canada much more than we did. But it's a great question. I reckon the best thing you can do is go and talk to your local member of parliament, because they really don't know. And they have to take your appointment, and they're going to be interested, especially if you've got a personal story. And like you say, you think it's spooky. It's not at all. They'll want to hear your story. It'll be refreshing.
I think that's probably where you really need to start, is you guys need a charter of rights and freedoms or some sort of constitution. I know that sounds really far-fetched, but at once upon a time, we had bought a website, which we still own, which is AustraliaVotesNow.org. And our idea was to put everybody that wanted to get a charter and have, certain things moved, get together in the right area. And I think something like that could be definitely created. It just needs the right people to manage it. I think if you went out there and said, do you want a charter? If you got enough people to say, give us a charter and show up at the right place, like I said, just get enough people to organize it, there's got to be a way. You guys have a voice, and if all of you show up, they can't say no at a certain point. Especially when you outnumber them. That's how change really happens, is when you outnumber those in charge.
With this so-called legalization anticipated in Canada, the way they are doing it, would you expect that the price somebody will have to pay, let's say, 60 grams of oil, will come down, or it will stay the same and the money will just flow to the special interests that are...
So the government has decided, which was the most ridiculous thing they ever said, that they want to sell marijuana for more money than what all of the street dealers and everybody else selling marijuana is selling it for. And they want to charge $1 per gram in tax. Plus they want a tax on sending it to you in the mail. Plus they want a handling fee, especially if you're coming from Shoppers Drug Mart, which is a big corporation in our country. That happened in the United States for a long time, where the guy in the corner was still being able to run because his pot was cheaper. But our government's planning to come after us, and they're quite serious. So what I think is going to happen is they're going to, instead of just being gentle about it like the Americans were, which I couldn't believe how kind they were actually, and now Canada's put on this we're coming to get you, total Rambo style, and they're coming, and that's what's going to happen is there'll be maybe 3 street dealers left, maybe some guy in his basement with some bubble mailers, and that'll be it.
I have been listening to this fellow, Alan Parks, one of your known comedians. So he has got this podcast, Green Crush, and he drives on about, and rightfully, it seems to me, about chiefs of police getting in the election in the context of this new legislation. They are investing, they are becoming suppliers of the stuff for which they have put countless people in jail and ruined their lives. And now they are standing there to benefit. So maybe these police being involved in this new scheme, which is turning out to be a scam.
Yeah, we're having that happen very heavily, where there's judges and police officials that were involved in putting lots of people away, as you put it, that are buying stocks, that are starting their own corporations. And it's kind of sad because, you know, they've spent all this time trashing the industry and now they're going to go cash in on it, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. We also have issues now in Canada where we have privatized prisons, which is an issue in America. And those same judges that are investing in the marijuana industry have also invested shares in the privatized prisons, where they put people away, where now these new cannabis laws are going to keep them there for a good chunk of their lives so they can do slave labor, which is just not Canadian. I mean, it's not really human to do that to someone, period, but it's just really new to us in Canada. And yeah, we're watching a new wave of crime stopping, as they put it, that we've never seen before. Yes, hi. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know either. Like I said, I think at first it's going to be really bad because so many people are going to get hurt. And then eventually it's going to smooth out. I mean, eventually, you know, we don't really have guys on the corner selling alcohol anymore, right? It's just, yeah, there's no like guy going, hey, I got the hard stuff, right? It's over, and it's going to take some time for it to smooth out. Though I think with cannabis, it's a little bit different than alcohol because it's something that grows in the ground. It's not like, you know, those little bottles of whiskey that you pick off a tree somewhere. But, you know, it's going to come to a point where there's a lot less people, I think, that are, you know, the mom and pop shops. There's going to be a lot of big corporations that are running it, which is kind of sad, but that's kind of the way it goes in a way. Yeah, I'm kind of torn because some of these companies are like really great and some of them are really, really bad, and you're kind of like running side by side where it used to be a whole bunch of really good people that were just looking out for each other running the industry. And yeah, now it's being run by people that don't know the people, they don't know the industry, and they're charging them a lot more money than they've ever had to pay before, and it's not a write-off. And they're not necessarily looking out for their best interests. I mean, one of our big government agencies just sent out a whole bunch of bad pot full of mold. Like, my street dealer's never given me moldy weed, ever, because I would freak out, right? And they didn't take these people's pot back. They just said, oh, don't smoke it, and then made them buy more. Wow. Like, the guy in the corner would be out of a job so fast, we'd run him out of town. Right? But you can't do that. See, we thought it was going to get better, like, right away, and then they brought in Project Claudia and Project Gator, and like I said, over 300 people were arrested and charged, thrown behind bars, within a period of 24 hours. 24 hours, we threw basically the entire cannabis community of Ontario behind bars. And for what? Because it's not run by the federal government. I mean, these people are having to pay taxes. It's not like the tax money, they just want more tax money, I think. They want to be in control of. It's like with tobacco. They want control of every, you know, gram of tobacco that is being sold. And they want it produced a certain way. Like the government is producing weed that's like, we used to call it Harper weed because our Prime Minister used to be Stephen Harper. And it would show up and it would say like radiated to be, you know, 2.5%. Like who's smoking weed that's 2.5%? Like that's like drinking water that's like, I don't know, that's just not very good for you, or like getting like unfiltered water. Like why would you bother? Why would you even bother giving out unfiltered water that's dirty and stuff? Just don't bother getting rid of, just get rid of it. And then you probably make butter out of the Harper weed, and you get this like tiny little toke out of like a whole bag of it. It was brutal. And I think that's kind of, they're trying to regulate it that way. They're not cutting it up and radiating it so much because most pot smokers are like, dude, we can buy it elsewhere. But at the same token, they're making it within certain levels. They're not allowing you to go and get, you know, the really good medicine. And even then, they're not even classifying necessarily the stuff I consider to be medicine as medicine. In the future where there's legalization and there's medical marijuana where I come from, your medical marijuana is going to be in pills and in things that you get at the chemist or the pharmacy like we have back at home. You're not going to be going to the chemist and be like, I'd like 3 grams of weed for my pain. They're going to look at you funny. And it's just really wild that, we're going to have people that don't use the product and, members of parliament that don't know what they're doing tell us that we can't have those 3 grams. It's just sucks. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, we need to work together for it to change. Yeah, we did a crowdfunding for the charter challenge with medical marijuana. I think we spent $550,000 of Canadian taxpayers' money. We literally like $1 a click, like you put it. Some people paid $500, some people paid $25, and eventually made enough money to pay a lawyer to fight out for our right to be able to grow marijuana because it took it away without even asking us. Yeah.
That's what you need to do. Not just do it in Canada. You need to get yourself like a couple of countries together and say, this organisation is this organisation. You've got to get to do a few ones.
Okay, that sounds great.
Will you organise it first? Can you do that?
I'm the 1964 child. My son, who's into
He could do it.
he would be able to.
He's the one.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Most of us have grandchildren and children. We need to now grab those kids and tell them, like, I need this stuff because I have cancer. There's many people in here that are in a similar situation. And if we get our kids just to start this up, and we get not one country, we get Australia, we get Canada, people
Absolutely.
from California will support us.
I have spilled 2 things of water now. I'm sorry.
I think it's a great idea. I agree.
I think it's a great idea. And if any of you guys have any more questions for me, I'll be hanging out outside. I'm happy to answer any questions and chat. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks, Mr. Ajia. The water's full. I agree with you. I think it's a great idea to create, and I agree the new generation will work through the internet, and social media is doing it. You get your son to start this ball rolling, please. Okay, perfect. Jay, where's Jay? You wanted to come and talk quickly about your, what do you call it? Podcasting. And where's old mate? There's a couple other people wanting to talk, and then I'm going to get the guys to come and do the demonstrations and talk to you all. Anyone else who is going to talk quickly about their healing? There was a couple of people. If you're here, come up now. You got half a minute. And where's Rodney and Co? Are you guys all here to do the demos? I'll go and find them while you talk.
Hey everyone, my name's Jay. I'm the host of the Devil's Lettuce podcast. I'm one of those millennials who's going to get things going. I have a podcast where I interview people who are in the cannabis industry, especially in Australia. You might have heard of Justin Sinclair, Teresa Taupik, who's here today, Leah Biziani, Sol Kay, who is Australian. He's currently in Israel, and he runs, is the CEO of ICANN, which is also partnered with the biggest cannabis conference in the world called Canatech. And they're just a few people that I've interviewed so far. So you can jump on social media, on Facebook, YouTube, it's on iTunes as well. If you don't know what a podcast is, it's just an audio interview, and I talk to people and ask them all the questions that you'd like to ask them, I guess. So the Facebook is the Devil's Lettuce Podcast. It's on iTunes, the same thing, or thedevilslettuce.com.au. And that's it. The Devil's Lettuce. Lettuce. As in salad. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Judy, and I just wanted to come up and tell you how beneficial this product has been for me. I'm known as the Queen of Pain. I've had fibromyalgia for years. I get severe liver pain every month. And I happened to accidentally go to Tamworth, the first symposium down there. And I've never been a rec smoker. I was raised at Redcliffe in Queensland. I was a really good girl. We didn't do anything like that. So I came away from that symposium and I thought, there's got to be something in this for me. I've worked medically all my life and never had exposure to it. But I've been through fentanyl and Lyrica, gabapentin. I've had every side effect. I had cirrhosis all over my body from Lyrica. And so I'm now taking a cannabis capsule every night. I don't need a sleeping pill. My fibromyalgia is very suppressed. My liver pain has disappeared. And in 4 weeks, just before Christmas, my eye pressure has gone down in my kind of early glaucoma. And I've failed 4 eye drops because I'm very sensitive. So my eye pressure's gone from 21 to 15, and I'm really delighted. So go for it.